It's the best news of the last fortnight. All 41 workers trapped in the Uttarkashi tunnel are out and safe. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our continued special coverage on the rescue operations at the Uttarkashi tunnel continue even at this late hour. The country has watched with bated breath 1.4 billion people praying for the release of 41 workers. Imagine their plight, who for the last fortnight have been living underground trapped in a tunnel. A complex mixture of jugaad and high-end technology, old methods and classic resilience. The Indian military and rat hole miners, a meeting of really every single element coming together for just one goal: to somehow secure the freedom of these 41 workers. And it has finally happened. And you are seeing those images of celebration, of relief on your screen. There are many other dramatic images as well that we'll be playing through this broadcast. But first, let me introduce a very special guest at this moment, a man who's had many tense moments in the last few days. But as an army general, he's used to tense moments. Even so, even for a general, General Hasnain, as a former general officer commanding, a member of the NDMA, a man spearheading the communications outreach, as well as looking at the organizational sort of logistics and overview of this rescue operation. Was this among the most challenging assignments you faced? And of course, congratulations, and what a sigh of relief. Finally, the proverbial light at the end of the a light at the end of the tunnel. General Hasnain.
Barkha, firstly, I think the congratulations is due to the nation. I think everyone is a winner here. We were disappointed by the World Cup just a few days ago on the 19th of November. 1.4 billion people so disappointed. We couldn't have ended up with another disappointment here. The nation couldn't have really taken it that way. I think this is India's moment. This is the greatest thing which has happened here. And the fact remains that it's been put together by a monumental effort which has started right from the top, from the Prime Minister down to the PMO, to the Cabinet Secretariat, the relevant ministries, the NDMA, down to the Uttarakhand SDMA, the Indian Army, the Air Force, the NDRF. I mean, name them. They are all there, right? It will take us a day to relate who all are actually involved in this. It's been an amazing effort put together. As to whether this was one of the most challenging moments I came across in life, well, one has been challenged many times in life in one's career. But yes, this was one of the most exciting times, definitely a different domain of challenge.
Because in a way, sir, of course, you've seen many life and death situations. You've encountered, you've served in conflict zones, you've served in war zones. But here at the other end were not soldiers, but civilians. And yet, they had to show soldier-like courage to hold their nerve for these 2 weeks, right? As all of you put your minds together to first figure out how to get them food, how to get them water, how to get them medicine. As they came out, and each worker had to be brought out, I know, individually on a stretcher. Can you share with us that detail of, the exact military precision with which each worker was brought out?
Well, the bringing out was the last bit of the process. Once the rat miners had gone in with the Indian Army engineers and done their job, on which I'm sure we will speak a little more in detail. But I think I'd give a lot of credit to the NDRF that there are two teams which were there. I've been working with the NDRF for the better part of 3.5 years now, and I understand their challenges, and they really rise to the occasion. They had really rehearsed and practiced. They had put together contraptions. I'm told that not all of them came out on stretchers. Many of them were bold enough to actually crawl out, because we had estimated 3 to 5 minutes per individual who would have to be rolled out on a stretcher. But this whole operation finished in a little over an hour. So all those 41, many of them actually came on their own strength, crawling out through that 1.2 meter, or in fact, it was just about a 70 centimeter or an 80 centimeter pipeline at the end of the day. That there was a lot of apprehension at the end. A lot of people called me up to say, why are you not announcing it, the success? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make sure that we would not disappoint the nation. That it's very important to understand that there are 1.4 billion people waiting. If one word is given which is wrong and you convey a wrong sentiment, you can't disappoint 1.4 billion people. And
Can you describe the
calling from
visual? I'm so
Washington and
sorry.
everywhere. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but there's this extraordinary visual on screen where I first saw a suitcase. Here's the worker crawling out. There's actually, you can see the worker crawling out after 2 weeks. I mean, it's extraordinary. I just wanted to point that out as you were talking about it. Yeah.
See, Barkha, one of the things which I did point out earlier also in one of our conversations, and I have been pointing out to a lot of people on the channels, is these are very hardy men, right? They are from rural areas all around. They have been working with the BRO. This is the kind of labor which works with all kinds of these organizations. They can live on very little. This is something which I always believed in, the tribals particularly. You see, the tribal communities of India, the manner in which they can survive on very little, the kind of jungle skills that they have. These people have got these kind of skills. They can survive on very, very little and live to tell the whole story after that. They came out smiling. You can see it at the end of the day. 17 days in this kind of an environment in which you don't know whether you're going to actually finally have a rescue being successful. I think it's an amazing kind of a psyche with which they have come out.
Can I talk about two institutions or two groups of people that you mentioned? You said rat miners went in with the Indian Army. I want to first talk about the Indian Army. I know when the military was called, everybody started saying, now finally, I think we'll see things moving, with no disrespect to everybody else who was trying. But there is that faith that Indian people feel in our army. And I want you to talk a little bit about, there will be questions asked. The army have called in earlier. Could we have done this quicker? As a Fauji, I want us to talk a little bit about the role of the army and whether we should have called in the army earlier.
I think there's a failing on my part. The communication was not good enough. I was given the brief to do the communications, and in the communications, perhaps the role of the Indian Army at the earlier part of the operation got somehow missed out because they were not immediately involved in the direct efforts. You see, the direct efforts that time were more mechanical. They were it was the auger which was in prominence at that particular time. There were large machines coming from different parts of India with a lot of which were being spoken about, the coordination effort, etc. Quietly, an engineer regiment, combat engineers of the Madras Engineering Group had been sent in here. The chief engineer from the central command of the Indian Army had already flown there, right? The chief engineer of the UB area at Bareilly had also flown in there. So there were lots of people who were never mentioned. They were all there. They came and gave ideas, thoughts, reported back. These people were all involved in the alternative methods. If all this would have failed, these are the people who would have finally gone in. At the end of the day, also, when it came to manual boring to go through, we relied on the skill of the rat miners and on the skill of the army engineers. And that won the day.
But isn't that fascinating? The army, used to operating in extremely tough conditions, and you've spoken, of course, about how they were involved from the very beginning, but just not at the exact front line directly earlier. Then eventually they were brought in, completely directly. Do you think that decision should have been taken sooner with the benefit of hindsight?
No, not really. The decision was taken well in time. I have not mentioned the BRO. The BRO is also manned by the Corps of Engineers of the Army. And They were the ones who made all those roads leading up to the top where all this heavy equipment was being taken. The plinth which was made for the boring machine from the vertical boring which had to be done was done by the BRO and the engineers there. So all this was happening. There were enough craftsmen there who were carrying out welding work of various implements which were being put together for the final option, the sixth option, that was the drift technology, the scraping of the sides by which an access would have been made to the workers. But fortunately, we managed to go 47 meters through the mechanical method, that is the auger. That was a saving grace, because this 47 meters in a manual effort would have taken a tremendously long time. And here we had the power of the auger machine to push the pipes. You see, now that the screw part of it, the boring machine part of it had broken, that was pulled out, but the pressure part of it was still very much intact, and that is what was used to push the pipe. Without that machine, and without having gone 47 meters already, it would have taken us the better part of another 3, 4, or 5 days, perhaps.
Well, the army always to the rescue, but let's talk a little bit about the role of rat miners, right? That is just something that we really do need to acknowledge. You've acknowledged it up front. Firstly, what are rat miners?
Well, you see, not a community of people. There are people who know how to work in enclosed spaces. It's one of the most difficult things to work in an enclosed space. I can tell you from personal experience, up in the Siachen Glacier, there is a particular post in which you got to crawl for almost about 40, 50 meters, climbing upwards, crawling through it to reach the actual post. It is a mind-boggling experience. I went through it and I came out traumatized at the other end. I can say as the commanding officer of the unit. So I can well understand what a man goes through if he has to go this 60 meters, or he is working. He's not just crawling, he's working in that enclosed space. That is a speciality of these people, that they can work, and they can work continuously over a period of time. They have the stamina to last out. They can breathe there comfortably. That is the great thing about them. And I cannot admit as to who thought about this. Surely someone there has thought about it. I'm not aware of it. But these miners came in from Jhansi, I'm told.
Mhm.
There are some of them in Delhi who have been doing some great work in Delhi too. They are normally involved. There were some of them involved in the attempted rescue, if you remember, in Meghalaya, when a mine had collapsed there and a number of our workers were stuck there at that time, about 2 or 3 years ago. So their roles have been recognized everywhere. Someone thought about it well in time and actually finally went back to find them and bring them here.
Well, we're seeing the image of the first worker, that dramatic moment of the first worker as he was pulled out. Can you talk a little bit about what the rat miners are able to do with their experience of being able to survive and work in enclosed spaces? How did that dovetail into the operation in the last mile, as it were?
You see, we had gone 47 meters. My estimate was that we had another 12 or 15 meters to go, but it fortunately turned out to be only 10 to 12 meters, which was required. That 10 to 12 meters without expert digging available, and without, we would have had to have much more manpower available for that. There would have been a repetitive change of teams going inside. But with these boys, these workers, the rat miners, who can work for long hours in this environment and come out and survive comfortably on it, this is where the effort came in. It's not as if it was only earthwork which was taking place. There were lots and lots of obstructions on the way, metallic objects, etc. I got a full feedback from lots of people who were working there, from the NDRF, etc. And they told me that they've used all kinds of implements to cut the metal parts and remove them. Frankly, I gave them a capability of about 3 to 4 meters in about 12 hours. But they outdid it completely. I mean, I heard by the time I was coming for the media conference in the evening, I heard that they have already done 10 meters and they are putting the last segment of 2 meters. I was actually taken by surprise, because this kind of a thing is not something that we talk about so often.
Yeah. And what does that make us understand? In some ways, I know when we were talking earlier, you said this was Indian jugaad at its best. And it was kind of the meeting of high technology with old communities, the army, the auger machines, the Chinook choppers that were on standby, the doctors, the counselors. I mean, I can't even imagine what a mammoth operation that we have just undertaken as a nation.
Actually, it needs to start right from the top, because I think on the 12th of October, when this happened in the evening, on Diwali day, the person who took the call was the Honorable Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, who took the first call on it, on decision making. And
Mhm.
his approach was to the Ministry of Railways, in fact, to the Railway Board. And now you will wonder, what does the railways have to do with this? The
Yes.
railways in India have the reputation of perhaps being the best infrastructure specialists, right? Bridging, tunneling, and things like this, they do marvelously. So immediate effort was made to go back to them for advice and capability, etc. You find there's a railway agency, infrastructure agency, which has also been involved in this effort. And then slowly you found other public sector undertakings who all have the infrastructure capability joining in. Now, the top-down drilling effort was all being done by the Satluj Vidut Jal Vidut Nigam Limited, for example. That's one which was doing this 46 meter and would have gone up to 86 meters, which was a huge challenge. Equipment had been brought from way off. It had been lifted. Part of it had been lifted by air. Part of it had been lifted by vehicles on the road. Green corridors were created all along the routes leading from eastern India and western India. Gujarat to Rajasthan to Haryana, UP, and on to Uttarakhand. From the other side, from Odisha to Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, and on to Haryana, rather UP and Haryana, and on to Uttarakhand. Two directions over green corridors. People being spoken at 3 o'clock in the morning. Deputy commissioners awake at night. SSPs of police awake at night. All were taking instructions at night and cheerfully responding. It's not that main kal subah dekhunga. Everyone is responding, and this green corridor was being given to all these vehicles to move so that there would be no obstruction in their move. Unfortunate that they are such bulky vehicles that when they reached the Uttarakhand corridor itself, there we had major challenges because the roads are narrower. We had to transship them into smaller vehicles, etc. That's a huge challenge. But these were the options. If we had failed in this horizontal effort, we had failed in this particular vertical effort, then we would have had nothing else to fall back on except this machinery which was coming all the way here.
I am going to, with your permission, just slip a little bit into Hindi as well, so that more of our viewers can access some of the things that you're saying, General Saab. तो इस समय अगर आप ये कार्यक्रम देख रहे हैं तो हम खुशी से कह सकते हैं कि 41 वर्कर्स जो उत्तरकाशी के टनल में ट्रैप थे वो अब एक तरह से फ्री हो चुके हैं और 2 हफ्ते से वो ट्रैप थे और पूरी ही सरकार की कोशिश के बाद, फौज की कोशिश के बाद, झांसी के रैट माइनर्स की कोशिशों के बाद अब उनकी एक तरह से फ्रीडम सिक्योर हो चुकी है. जनरल साहब, व्हाट वाज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज? सबसे बड़ी चुनौती क्या रही?
बरखा, मेरी खुद की तो एक निजी तौर की चुनौती थी मेरे लिए कि मुझे ब्रीफ दिया गया था कि भाई देखिए, ट्रांसपेरेंटली भारत की पब्लिक को ये इंफॉर्मेशन, सूचना मिलना है कि सरकार इसको बड़ा सीरियसली ट्रीट कर रही है, इसको लाइटली नहीं ले रही है और हर साधन को इस्तेमाल करेगी, कोई भी तरीका नहीं छोड़ा जाएगा, कोई एक्सपेंस नहीं छोड़ा जाएगा. ये मैसेज कन्वे करना है पूरे देश को, नहीं तो क्योंकि देश का जो मनोबल था उसके ऊपर बाधा पड़ रही थी, उसके ऊपर असर हो रहा था. इट्स नॉट गुड फॉर द साइकी ऑफ ए नेशन ऑफ 1.4 billion people. I think we started with this challenge, and then it was automatically conveyed that everything is being done. A lot of leadership went into motivating the people on the ground, the continuous visits of people there. A lot of people say VIP visit जो है वो नहीं होनी चाहिए. कोई लोग कहते हैं कि उससे जो है बाधा बहुत पड़ती है हमारे ऑपरेशंस के अंदर. ऐसी कोई बात नहीं हुई. यहाँ जो गए वहां पर उन्होंने सब में मनोबल बढ़ाया, रिलेटिव्स के साथ बातचीत की, अंदर वर्कर्स जो फंसे हैं उनके साथ बातचीत की, उनका लिंकअप किया, साथ में मुआयना किया और उसकी फीडबैक भी दिया अप द चेन. प्रधानमंत्री तक पूरा फीडबैक जा रहा था और वो डायरेक्शन वहां से दे रहे थे. सो इट वाज अ वेल ऑयल्ड मशीन, जिसको कहते हैं ना, बहुत अच्छी तरीके से कोऑर्डिनेटेड मशीन थी जो चल रही थी. ये बहुत कम देखा जाता है, बट ये मैं समझता हूं कि आगे के समय ये एक उदाहरण दिया जाएगा कि देखिए, तो सरकार चाहती है, जब सरकार आती है एक साथ इस तरह से सब साधनों को लेकर, कितनी आसानी के साथ सरकार ने जो है कामयाबी पाई है.
What was your most nervous moment? आपके लिए as an officer, you are trained to remain calm in the toughest of situations. That is your training. लेकिन जिसको कहते हैं ना कि what keeps you up at night. मुझे याद है कि जब हमने 2-3 दिन पहले बात की थी और मीडिया में चर्चा चल रही थी कि बस आज ही सब फ्री हो जाएंगे. You said it's going to take time. You also made a comment saying कि मुझे instruction थी कि देश के लोगों के साथ transparent रहिए. Sometimes that meant dealing with impatient media, oversimplistic media narratives, distraught families, and a kind of impatience. कब इतनी देर क्यों लग रही है, and so on. What was the most nervous moment for you? This, of course, is the Prime Minister himself says that I salute the spirit of all the people associated with this rescue operation. Talk a little bit about what kept you up at night, General Saab.
Firstly, Barkha, the first moment of facing the media on that day, I had a degree of uncertainty. You see, I am quite adept at talking to the media. I've been quite used to it in my experience in Jammu and Kashmir. But this was a different challenge. And you had the national media right in front of you. You were sitting in the PIB hall and everyone was shooting questions at you. So you had better be well informed enough कि आप उनकी जो उनके सवाल है उनका जवाब दे सकते हैं. That was a challenge by itself, but in a day or 2 days I got hold of it. I found एक तो मीडिया बहुत कोऑपरेटिव था, उनको आसानी के साथ कम्युनिकेशन उनके साथ बना हुआ था. जब मीडिया का कम्युनिकेशन देश के साथ होता बनाना चाहते हैं आप, तो आपका अपना कम्युनिकेशन मीडिया के साथ बहुत सही होना चाहिए. आई थिंक दैट वाज ए ग्रेट थिंग फॉर मी व्हिच आई मैनेज्ड टू अचीव इन द फर्स्ट 2 days itself, और उससे मनोबल मेरा खुद का बढ़ा. पर फ्रैंकली मैं बहुत डिसअपॉइंट हुआ उस दिन और बहुत मेरे मन पर असर हो रहा था. मैं सो भी नहीं पा रहा था जब ये ऑगर की मशीन जो है ये ब्रेकडाउन हुई और मुझे खबर देनी पड़ी कि अगर ये साधन टूट गया तो हमारे पास अगले 15 दिन से 20 दिन लग सकते हैं इस काम को पूरा करने के लिए. बट एट द सेम टाइम आश्वासन भी दे रहा था मैं लोगों को कि देखिए 15-20 दिन जो है वो में हो जाएगा. वर्कर जो है वो कहीं नहीं जा रहे हैं. 15-20 दिन सर्वाइवल है उनका. आसानी से लाइफलाइन बनी हुई है, 2 लाइफलाइन है और तीसरी लाइफलाइन भी बन रही है टॉप डाउन अप्रोच से. सो one had to, you were aware that you are up against these challenges, but you knew at the same time that there are options being worked on. And so the information flow जो था वो चलता रहा, which kept the nation very, very motivated.
There was a vertical sort of option made as a plan C, not a plan B, but a plan C, which was basically if you had to go down top to bottom, right? Instead of through the tunnel. What did you have to do to achieve that option?
Well, एक तो सड़क बनानी पड़ी. बीआरओ को बहुत जल्दबाजी के साथ सड़क बनानी पड़ी. About 1150 meters of road construction they did. This whole machinery, the drill for that had to be brought, installed. तैयारी उसकी करनी पड़ी. पहले जो उसका प्लिंथ बनता है, स्क्रूज एंड नट्स एंड बोल्ट्स, बेडिंग करनी पड़ती है. और जब शुरू किया तो वी कंटिन्यूड विद दिस टिल दिस आफ्टरनून. हमने कल तक 36 मीटर किए थे. आज शाम तक जब हमने रोका तो 46 मीटर पे रोका. वो ऑप्शन चल रहा था. वी डिडंट वांट टू स्टॉप इट कि किसी हालत में ये आखिरी 2 मीटर में भी अगर कोई अड़पन ऐसी आ गई तो कम से कम एक ऑल्टरनेटिव तो है हमारे पास. It was a difficult one. You have to actually physically lift workers out of the hole in buckets. बड़ी bucket के अंदर निकालना पड़ता in that case, and it was a very small hole. It's not a very big one. 1.2 meters in width. हालांकि ये horizontal वाला तो 70 से 80 सेंटीमीटर है. That would be 1.2 meters, but going through 86 meters of a vertical lift. Claustrophobia at its extreme. So that was a challenge.
Yeah. Do we have any information? It's going to take time. The workers have been taken in ambulances, for medical intervention. There were counselors on call. But you've been, in a way living this, breathing this for the last fortnight. Do we know what the first worker said as he emerged into freedom?
I would be lying if I said it, Barkha, and that's one thing which I will never do. But yes, I saw the Honorable Chief Minister Dhami Saab himself welcoming the first one.
Yes, those images are on our screen.
Gale lagana, as you would say it. And General VK Singh there, my old chief, also there, similarly welcoming them. I can think very reassuring words must have been spoken to them, expressing gratitude. All of us believe in the divine intervention. I'm sure some good words of divinity would have been spoken to them. All of them believe in God. All of us believe in God. They would have spoken of all these things together.
In fact, there's a very moving image. I don't know if we have it right now of one of the experts bowing down. If we can quickly pull out that image, bowing down at a kind of local, a hillside temple that is revered by the people. And this is an international expert. So this, you know,
You can see it
oops.
right in front of you.
Let me actually play it. Let me actually play it because it's got some
बिल्कुल
sound
जाऊंगा.
on it. Can we play it, please? Can we play it? So I want you to talk a little bit, General Hasnain, about the role of faith. The role of faith in this. This is a local deity and prayers are being offered there. Can you talk a little bit about the role of faith? You spoke about God and the belief in God.
See, Barkha, इसमें अब let me speak in Hindi so that more people can understand this
बिल्कुल,
also.
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल.
मैंने शुरुआत की थी आपको कहते हुए कि ये एक मिलिट्री ऑपरेशन है. इसको मैं मिलिट्री ऑपरेशन से कम नहीं समझता हूं. मुझे याद है कि जिस ऑपरेशन में कभी मैं गया अलग अलग जगहों पर भारत में 40 साल में हर जगह पर हमने शुरुआत अपनी की बाय गोइंग टू द मंदिर. सुबह हम 4 बजे अगर निकलते थे ऑपरेशन के लिए तो पहले मंदिर में जाते थे, वहां टीका लगाते थे, देखिए दिया जलाते थे, जय बद्री विशाल पुकारते थे, दैट्स आवर वॉर क्राई, बोल बद्री विशाल लाल की जय पुकारते थे हम थोड़ा सा वेरी वेरी साइलेंटली सो दैट इट्स नॉट हर्ड आउटसाइड एनीवे. It was the thing in everyone's mind that he's going out, pray to God that I come back safe and sound. जब वापस आते थे हमारे ऑपरेशन ज्यादातर जगहों पर ऑपरेशंस में हमारे यूनिट में तो यह तरीका था कि गेट के ऊपर कोई ना कोई खड़ा होता था प्रसाद लेकर और एक एक मुट्ठी भर प्रसाद घर हाथ में मिलता था. उसके बाद हम मंदिर जाते थे, मंदिर में जाकर फिर टीका लगाते थे, ठीक है, मत्था टेकते थे. वी वर थैंकफुल दैट गॉड हैज ब्रॉट अस बैक. मतलब जितनी आपकी अपनी काबिलियत हो मगर आखिर में आप भगवान पर ही डिपेंड करते हैं कि ही इज फाइनली ब्रॉट यू सेफली बैक. Let me tell you, in all operations and very, very difficult operations, I have seen men ultimately lighting up their own small diyas before they go into operations. Individually, everyone believes in God. And at that moment, even if you are an atheist, you will believe in God. So, and here you don't have to say which God. We all believe in God. And that's the greatest thing. We have seen in the Siachen Glacier, we have got one OP Baba there. Anyone and everyone who goes up does a matha teko at OP Baba. Similarly, you can see the scene here. Everyone is doing a matha teko here because divinity is the most important thing. And wherever there is a threat to human life, divinity always intervenes.
Well, it is very, very moving. And before I take a last comment from you, we're going to wait to hear the testimonies of these workers, what they went through, how their faith and resilience kept them alive. But let's first now listen to the father of one of those who was trapped inside. Imagine what the families would have been undergoing all of these days. This is a very, very relieved father and his statement just as the news came in that the workers were about to be rescued. Listen in.
अब शर्मिंग बाहर निकलने लगे हैं, क्या कहेंगे?
कहेंगे खुशी हम लोग के अंदर बहुत हो गया है और भगवान अच्छे से निकाल दिए और सरकार और का बहुत धन्यवाद, सारे देश का धन्यवाद, निकालने वाले भी श्रमिकों का धन्यवाद कि हम लोग सुरक्षित बच्चों को देख रहे हैं और उनका धन्यवाद मनाएंगे. और आज दीपावली के रूप में हम लोग मना रहे हैं. खुशी तो बहुत है. सारे हमारे गाँव के सभी लोग आए हुए हैं, बड़ बुजुर्ग हमारे भैया हैं, ये भी लोग सभी आए हैं और
खुशी मना रहे हैं.
खुशी बहुत है. दीपावली के रूप में, छठ के रूप में मना रहे हैं.
क्या क्या हो रहा है?
पूजा पाठ, हनुमान चालीसा और सुंदर कांड सब हो रहा है और दिया जलाए गए और सब कुछ ठीक ठाक है. प्रभु भगनाथ बाबा से मैं निवेदन करता हूं कि हमारी प्रार्थना को स्वीकार किए और भगवान से भी विनती है कि पूरे विश्व को शांति प्रदान करें.
ठीक है.
सो छठ पूजा है हमारे लिए ये दिवाली है, हम सब सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं. एंड इट्स एक्स्ट्रॉर्डिनरी, नॉट इवन वन कैजुअलिटी. आई मीन इट इज अ 100% सक्सेसफुल operation, General Hasnain. In the end, what is your takeaway that you'd like the people of the country to understand? What will you go to sleep tonight? What will be your last thought tonight as you put your weary head on your pillow finally?
I would definitely thank God. भगवान को मैं बहुत धन्यवाद कहता हूं कि इस तरह की चुनौती जो है वो पूरी हमने ओवरकम की है. But beyond that, I think it's important for us to understand that disaster is something that we have to live with today. ये क्लाइमेट चेंज जो है जबरदस्त चल रही है. क्लाइमेट चेंज के साथ रिलेटेड जो इश्यूज हैं, चैलेंजेस हैं, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी की है एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट, ऑल दिस इज गोइंग टू रिमेन लाइव इन आवर लाइव्स as we progress further. More we learn about this. I don't think we know enough about it. I don't think there's enough interest in it. The visuals from your show and from other shows on television will definitely generate a tremendous amount of interest in India. NDMA is still a young authority. We are about 18 years old. But I think we've got our act together. And this itself has given us a tremendous boost to our understanding of things. I can assure you one thing. We are going to look at this with a absolute meticulously analyze it moment to moment, learn the lessons. That is one of the very important points in the 10-point program of the Prime Minister, of the Honorable Prime Minister, that lessons must be learned from every disaster. We will learn these lessons and we will make guidelines to overcome this disaster. That is the challenge before us hereafter.
And there will be time and space, I think, to debate, climate change, ecological sustainability, environmental protection, how to avoid this from happening again. But for tonight, वो जो शंख की आवाज थी जब वो एक बाप अपने बेटे के बारे में एक तरह से बोल रहे हैं कि ये मेरे लिए दिवाली है, ये छठ पूजा है, और वो जो शंख की आवाज आती है एक तरह से वो हमें याद दिलाती है about the interconnectedness of all Indians. This is when the country comes together. And it really did in this moment. And I want to say thank you to the Indian military, always to the Indian military, always first on my list, but also to the rat miners of Jhansi, to the NDMA, to you, General Hasnain, to the BRO, to the local bureaucrats working on the ground non-stop, to the councillors, to the doctors, the all of government approach. It's a rare thing to see in a very otherwise divisive times, जिस पे रोज हर चीज पे झगड़ा होता है. Maybe we can end with the fact that we can come together when we decide to.
Absolutely. I think we couldn't leave this program on a better note than this. I think this is the takeaway from here. Achieve everything.
And my producer, one of my producers, colleagues who's from Uttarakhand, is saying, please also do mention the role of the local people, the civil society there, the communities there.
As I told you, Barkha, I mean, we can take the whole day mentioning how many people were involved. We haven't mentioned the NDRF's tremendous presence there. Right. 2 teams which were there. The DG personally present, their DIG, their IG who have been camping there throughout. They are the ones who made all these contraptions for pulling out the workers, etc. Been some tremendous effort by all of them. So we need, over a period of time, we'll have to continue acknowledging this.
Well, you have delivered probably the first night in 2 weeks that the workers and their families will sleep. And that is no mean feat. It has been, as I said, the best news of the fortnight. Thank you, General Saab, to everybody, to anybody I may have missed inadvertently, and to you for communicating with the country through a very difficult and tense time. Thank you, sir, and sleep well tonight.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you. Take care, sir.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.